Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. It is such a pleasure to be here. This is my first live on YouTube, and it is the 100th incarnation day of my guru. Let me just set this up. And we are celebrating his life. And I've taken the day to really think about and meditate on and spend time contemplating just how incredibly meaningful um, his life has been for me and for all of us, and such an impact that Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati has had, not just on my own life, but also on the lives of thousands of other people, from his close students to the students, the general population of people who knew him during his life. And also, for just the yoga world overall. I'm wondering if we can maybe move this, if we can move the light over to about here. So, and that said, one of the things that I am thinking about as I honor him is how meaningful he has been in the world of yoga, but also the depth of his teachings. They've been so special, so important, and yeah. So that's what I'm doing here today. So let's take a moment now. We're going to chant to the Guru. So everybody, let's get ready. We're going to just sit here and we're going to chant to the Guru. So you all must be knowing this verse. It is the Guru Mantra, and we're going to extend our respect. These great masters who have come to us have been so important to all of us. They've really elevated not just the yoga world at large, but each of us individually. And I know that my life has been so enriched by the life of Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati. Of course, I call him Guruji. But my life has been so enriched by his presence and the gift of him, and I was very privileged to spend so much time with him, and he allowed me that wonderful gift, and here I am honoring him with all of you. Let's do it. So we're going to start with Guru Mantra, and you'll have to pardon my cold. I have a slight cold. Okay. So relax your body, and let's just get ourselves into a mode. I want to just say, people often ask me, what are these shoes doing at your altar? These are the shoes of my Guru, the final shoes. And these are my parents. So they're not just shoes at my altar. They are the shoes of my Guru and the final shoes of my parents. All right. So let's relax the body. And we're going to chant Guru Mantra. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Deva Maheshwara, Gurur Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Together, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. One more time. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Let's take a couple minutes of silence, just 2-3 minutes of silence, of meditation. And this meditation is specifically in honor of the greats, the great yogis who have come to this country, to this the Western world overall, not just the United States. And in their benevolence, they've been willing to share their beauty and their light with us, but also that they incarnated into form. And specifically, we're honoring Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati, whom I call Guruji. What to say about such a person? He entered my life when I was a child, and he completely transformed me in all the ways that are positive and good. And I'll share a little bit about my story with him, a story or two of being with him, but let's just take this time right now just to quietly sit, resting our bodies with ease. Gently close your eyes and pull inside. And for the time being, don't try to know anything. Just feel who am I. Some people are so great. And they're great not because they are in their personhood, in their individuality, but their ability to tap into their universality, or the universality, that light that exists within all of us. So follow Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati's lead and feel the light that exists within all of us. bring your palms together in front of you and bow your head. In gratitude for a life of great service and respect for all beings. Today we honor Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati, the great guru who lived in Monroe, New York. All the way from India, he came to the United States. Shanti. Shanti. So I'd like to read a small section of this book. Okay. I'm going to read about the author. This is one of my teacher's most famous books, Fundamentals of Yoga. And I'm going to read a little bit about him, the author. This was originally published by Julian Press, but we took it back after the details of that arrangement sort of finished their service, and then we got it back. So now it is produced by our publication. So his original name from childhood is Ramamurti S. Mishra. So Ramamurti S. Mishra, also known as, later when he took sannyas, Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati, had an extensive background in both Eastern and Western medicine. So he was a brain surgeon, he was a psychiatrist, etc. After years of practicing and teaching medicine and brain surgery in his native India, he came to the West in 1955 for further research and advanced medical studies. In the years that followed, he served as a resident physician at several leading university hospitals in the United States and Canada. In 1958, Dr. Mishra founded the Yoga Society of New York to accommodate his expanding classes in yoga and meditation. In 1966, he gave up his medical career to continue teaching spiritual teachings, founding ashrams and centers of meditation and learning in the United States, Canada, and Europe. In addition to his stature as an Eastern and Western trained physician, neurosurgeon, and healer, Dr. Mishra, otherwise known as Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati, was a widely recognized scholar and an authority on the ancient Sanskrit scriptures of yoga and Vedanta. Excuse me. He is the author of the textbook of yoga psychology, self-analysis and self-knowledge, the Atma Bodha, by Sri Shankaracharya, and several other books that may not be listed here. Modern translations of several Upanishads and other classical Sanskrit scriptures, many writings and stories illustrating the nature of the self or the I am. In addition, much of his teaching is recorded in audio and video format. Shri Brahmananda's life was dedicated to the integration of ancient and modern Eastern and Western science, culture, and philosophy for transformation, self-realization, and universal peace through spiritual unity. He left his body in September of 1993, yet his spiritual presence continues to pervade his ashrams, and his timeless teachings remain a source of inspiration and guidance for all. So, I want to read a little bit about his teachings, but I thought I would just read a little bit of his biography. And I'll just read just a tiny bit of this. So I just, because I'm not feeling so well, I got back from India and I got a bad flu. But I wasn't able to go up to the ashram because I didn't want to get everybody sick. but I thought I will have a live stream with all of you, and then make this as an offering, as one of my offerings. Okay? So I thought I would read a little bit from his Fundamentals of Yoga book, and this chapter is short, but it's very sweet, and it sort of contains um, the way he was. So he says here in chapter 1 on yoga and its application, he says, the submission of lower desire to higher desire is called yoga. And I love the way he says that. The submission of lower desire to higher desire is called yoga. In other words, when we let our lowest common denominator submerge and we move into awareness with our higher aims of life, this is the beginning of the blossoming of yoga in our consciousness. He says in yoga, the student leads his or her mind from untruth to truth, darkness to light, ignorance to knowledge, from pain, sufferings, diseases, and death to peace, happiness, and eternity, and basically from unreality to reality. Yoga teaches the methods to control the mighty waves of the mind and to subdue them completely to the primordial consciousness, which is operating eternally through every perceptual mechanism, is working as an eternal teacher for the student of yoga. Without understanding this principle, yoga practice is impossible. So here it's yogic technique and yogic understanding teaches us how to work with the waves of the mind, and by doing that, the real blessing and the tranquility that yoga gives us access to, and the inner strength blossoms in us the more we are able to understand what are the waves of the mind, and then to begin to, how does he describe it? To control the mighty waves of the mind, or subdue them, or calm them. Then he goes on, yoga does not recognize physics without metaphysics. So or metaphysics without physics. So he's trying to say here that there's a relationship that yoga always takes into account between sort of like one level and the other level, the physical aspect and also the metaphysical aspect, and the metaphysical aspect, but also the physical aspect. And one of the things that I think that I love that he's saying here is how we don't, when we go into the experience of yoga, we don't leave our humanity in the dust. We don't treat our humanity. In other words, metaphysics, it needs also the physics. But at the same time, we don't go into the physical universe and have no contact with the depth of the metaphysical universe. That we don't do either. So that's very important. All right. Thus, yoga is a missing link between physics and metaphysics. It criticizes both when they try to become separate and brings them together under one eternal principle, which is called ultimate reality. He goes on, many people learn yoga to conquer some physical and mental illness or weakness, while others learn yoga to obtain some kind of occult powers. Philosophers learn yoga to make alive their philosophy, because without the practice of yoga and the teachings of philosophy and Vedanta, the teachings of philosophy and Vedanta are like a lifeless body. Religious people practice methods of yoga to perceive truth in the scriptural statements, because without the practice of yoga, scriptures are nothing but figurative statements. Hypnotists learn yoga in the form of hypnotism to become professional hypnotists. Some learn yoga as a curiosity, while a few learn yoga for the sake of tremendous magical powers. While yoga definitely has all the above-mentioned powers, its real aim is beyond these goals. Once, the first writer of the Yoga Sutra, Patanjali, was asked by his student, "Sir, you have written a book of medicine which treats mental and physical diseases temporarily. Is there any way to conquer mental and physical illnesses, pain, sufferings, and death permanently?" And the great yogi Patanjali replied as follows: "Yoge mokshe cha sarvesham, vedanam avartam mokshe, nirvrittihi nihishesha yogo moksha pravartakaha. That is to say, yoga and moksha are two great states in which all pains and sufferings are permanently conquered. Moksha, or nirvanam, is the permanent abode of eternal consciousness, knowledge, existence, blessings, happiness, and peace. And yoga is the infallible instrument to obtain nirvana. Thus, the main goal of yoga is freedom of the spirit from the fetters of material desires and the permanent victory of consciousness over ignorance. So I'll let you read the rest of that chapter for those of you who have it, and for those of you who don't, I highly recommend you get this book, um, The Fundamentals of Yoga. But I just wanted to have a little bit of a reading from his writings, and some of his earliest writings at that. And I wanted to invoke a mantra in his honor. And does anybody have any questions in the meantime? You can add that into the chat field. And let's see, I'll share a story about my teacher. So I was about 12 years old. And it was the 80s. And I used to wear everything polka dot. And my hair was cut short. And my mom came home one day and she handed me a wooden necklace. And it was made of wooden beads. And it was called a mala, but I didn't know that at the time. And I remember she said to me, "This is a gift, a special gift for you from a great saint." And I thought, why would a great saint give me anything? And what does that even mean? What is a great saint? I didn't even know. But my mom was always sort of interacting with things that were spiritual. So I just kind of took it in kind. And I took the little mala, and I liked the necklace. And it had such a good energy. So I wore the necklace. I called it a necklace at the time. And every night before bed, I put a tack on my wall. And right before bed, I would hang this necklace up. And I used to almost talk to the necklace. Like I would have a little conversation at 12 years old. I'd say, "Well, I don't know why you gave me this, but anyway," and I would put it on this tack on my wall. And then the next day, when I'd get up, I would wear the necklace. And this necklace, or mala, was given by Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati. I formally met him a year later, or maybe a little bit less. And my meeting with him was pretty momentous. It totally changed my life. And I was very fortunate. He taught me very old school style. He took me under his umbrella, under his arm, and he guided me. And he was very strict, very masculine in the style of teaching. Very, very strict. It was like, do it. But he was also extremely loving and caring. So he wasn't strict mean. He was just like, this is how it's done, and this is how it's done if you want to do it, or if you want to engage with yogic practice and with tradition. And so I wanted that. I started to I just loved being in his company, and I really was starry-eyed because the energy in his field was so luminous and so powerful. And obviously I loved him very much, but it was like mythology. It was like walking in mythology. And so to spend time with him was to spend time studying things like Yoga Sutra and Fundamentals of Yoga, which I was just reading. And to spend time with him was to spend time in tradition. And sometimes it was very exalted and very formal, and just what you would think, a man with a long beard and all that. And other times it was very simple and very, it was Chips Ahoy and Coca-Cola. And we would read Sanskrit, or we would read from some book, and then after we, some Veda or some Upanishad or something on Nada Yoga or so many books, and and then and then I'd be given the opportunity to sit alongside him, um, and watch the news if I wanted to, or I could go and do my, my 13, my 14, my 15-year-old thing, whatever that was. So he really occupied the day with teachings, but then he would say, okay, go and do what you want, go do something else. And so you'd get a few hours, or I got a few hours to go. And I don't know, go to the store if I needed to or whatnot, and then take care of a few personal things, and then come back and be ready to study and practice again. And that went on for years. And that's just how it rolled. And I was a teenager, so, I was late a lot. I would, and he would be like, you have to be on time. And, but he was patient with me about that because my age and all that. And eventually I got much better at it. But it was being in his presence, his aura, his field of energy was miraculous. He was a phenomenal human being. And I don't look at him as a human being, but I don't not look at him as a human being. If this makes sense, I'm going to explain. In other words, he was in a body, but he was not of that body. He was within a form, but he was well expanded beyond the form. And if you had the courage, to go along for the ride and to try to learn some of what he taught, you too could experience yourself beyond the mind and beyond the body. And then experience what that's like. Because it's one thing to talk about it, it is entirely another to actually engage it and to then live through it. And now today marks his 100th. It's his 100th birthday or incarnation day. So this is the 100th, March 6th. And so just in honor of that, I place my head at the feet, at his lotus feet. I always place my head at his lotus feet. And never have I ever forgotten the great privilege that I've been given to know him, to have heard him speak, to have been in his field, and certainly to be so very close. And at the same time, I've never lost sight of that, and I'm so grateful even today. More grateful today, actually, as I've gotten older and grown into the teachings much more with a greater depth of maturity and understanding. So, are there any questions? I don't know quite how to work the questions on this. If anybody has anything. Let's see. No questions. Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati. So I'm here for a short time with all of you. I'm going to go back to bed soon because I'm not feeling so well, but that's just a simple flu. But in honor of this great soul who cared so much for humanity, I extend my sincere pranamas. And it's just amazing, I don't even know how to describe it. Just one of the most fierce, loving. I've never met anybody like him. It was just, his physical form was outrageously cool, I'll tell you a story. One time he used to put a little paste. We'd go and he'd have all these things that he would get ready for programs. So sometimes we'd walk by and there'd be like a little ledge and there would be a couple of cloves in a dish, some sandalwood paste, his compass, his stick, and his hat. So we'd get all that ready. He'd take the little sandalwood paste, put it in his beard, and I used to smile. Then he would get his hat on and he would look at me and I would smile again, and then I would give him his blanket. He'd throw it over his shoulder, or this shoulder rather, have his stick in his arm. Uh, and it was just incredibly sweet. Um, and then he would look at me, like, here we go. You ready, kid? And it's like, wherever you're going, I'm going. And that's how I felt. Uh, and that's how I still feel. Wherever you're going, I'm going. So let me see. I see somebody has a comment here. Oh, yes. Hi, Iron. How are you? Yeah, I met him through my mother. I met my guru through my mother. She said to me one day when I was 13 and I was living at my grandparents' house, she said to me, "You want to go hear this man speak?" And she was very cool about it and very chill. And she was like, "You want to go hear this guy speak?" And I was like, "What guy? What man?" And I was suspicious of her, because when you're 13, whatever your parents want you to do, you kind of don't want to do. Or at least I didn't. I was very rebellious. And she played it very cool. And she was like, I don't know. And so I said, all right, I'll go. And when I went over to his yoga center in Monroe and sat down, I didn't know anything about yoga. I didn't know anything about gurus. I thought his name was Guruji. Like, I mean, he was Indian. Everything about his world was foreign to me. So I just thought that was a name like David, Mark, Guruji. I really had no idea. And then I sat down and I listened to him speak, and I couldn't believe the things he said. They were so incredible. I was just like, it was like being struck by lightning. And I just, every day after that, I could not wait to get back there to hear him talk. I just wanted to hear, I wanted to hear more of what he had to say. I wanted to sit with the things he had to say. I wanted to ask questions when I could. And so that's what happened. That's how I came to know him. And I, uh, after that, I just constantly tried to get back there, and of course it wasn't so easy. It took a little time. I had to mow the lawn to get my grandpa to drive me over and stuff like that. My obstacles in those days were that I had no money and no car and I was too young to get over there. Everybody's got obstacles at whatever time, but you know, um, yeah, so that's how I came to know him. So fortunate. But when you're a great master like he is, just the thing. You're able to extrapolate just the thing. And so in that particular meeting, he he looked me right in the eye. There's 60 people, maybe more. He looked me right in the eye and he said something to me that was so personal to me that it would be weird for anybody to know that. And he just looked me right in the eye and he said this to me. And I was like, who the hell are you? And it wasn't something creepy personal. It was just like, it had been something that I was really sitting with um, and had been contemplating a lot. And it was, about the nature of spiritual depth but like verbatim, the words that I would use. And it was so, and this is very Guruji and very Guru in general. It's like they can capture your thought and just boom. And I was like, my jaw was on the floor. I just couldn't believe it. I just could not believe. I was like, you know. And he said, don't you think we should know the purpose of our lives? Don't you think we should understand what we're all doing here? So, and some other things. And it just really intrigued me. And so that's what I did. I just found myself wanting to get back there. I kept asking my mother at the time, like, who is he? What are the people that are around him? You said he was a doctor, but he's wearing all red. Why does he wear all red and all this kind of stuff? And, that took time to understand little by little. But as I came to understand it, I came to understand what a guru was. And he was a master. He had been a doctor. Now he had given that up and was teaching. Those were his disciples. I was like, disciples? What does that mean? So it took a while to understand all those things, but he was very cool. He wasn't. He was just amazing, and his light is still pervasive because he did not identify himself as an individual. Therefore, with the disintegration of his body, he is still so present. And all you have to do is think about him or invoke his name or say a mantra to him, and you can draw the light of Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati and all that he is into your own consciousness and into your own heart. You can read his books. It's not just my privilege. Of course, I'm aware of the privilege that I had to know him physically and personally, but you can invoke the Guru Mantra in his honor. You can read his books and many other books like it. You can contemplate the stories. The stories, we tell the stories because they're fun, and because they invoke the person and you remember them. I remember another story which is very cute. They were doing a fair at the ashram, and they had all kinds of like booths people were doing. And one woman was doing she was reading people's palms. So our guru decided that he would sit down and get his palm read, which is really funny. So he sat down, and wherever he sat down, a crowd would gather. So this huge crowd gathered around, and he sat there and he gave his palm to the lady. I don't think I've ever told this story. And he gave his palm to the lady, and she just started shaking. And she was like, "Oh, Guruji," and he understood, he understood that was a bit too much to ask, and with the big crowd and all that, and he just gave her blessings. He lifted his hand and touched her head and said, "Okay, be blessed," and then he went on his way. So he loved to be playful, and if you talk to any of his direct devotees, you'll hear so many stories of complete transformation and such love, the love. Thank you, Iron. I'm looking at your comment. You say, "Thank you, it was destiny and great karma. Indeed, and remarkable for someone so young to feel that kind of connection." Indeed, it was a great blessing. And so thank you for that. And so, as we find a moment to reflect on this life, because it was a great blessing for me, but he was a great blessing for so many people. I mean, he was a blessing for so many. He was Guru of Sharon and David's. He was Guru. I have so many Guru Bhai. I mean, I'm just sharing my stories, but there's so many stories. So many antics, so much fun. One time somebody had asked him if he would do a house blessing. He said, "Why not?" Next thing you know, he went and he did this beautiful house blessing at my dear friend Tara's house. It's so lovely. She got this new house. And another time he invited all the ashram children up. He saw them outside and he told me, "Okay, get all the cookies ready and call them upstairs." So we brought all the kids inside, and I was pretty much a kid myself, but I was like a little older. I was like maybe 16, and they were like anywhere from like 5 to 12 or something like that. So I brought them all in and they sat around him, and then I translated, and it was so cute. It was like Santa Claus with all these little ashram children. He said, "Listen, sometimes your parents are really going to be annoying you. But all that I want you to do is close your eyes and go, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya." Then he goes, "And sometimes you're going to be at school and your teacher's not going to understand you, or some problem's going to happen. And I want you to just close your eyes. And even if you can't say it out loud, you can say it inside. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya." And so even there, like he wanted the children to have a place of strength within themselves to refer back to and to have some tools. And he went on to give teachings that afternoon that would be, receivable by the kids at that time, and share with them some of his sweetness, like a grandpa. So that was really touching for me, you know. And we gave them, of course, Chips Ahoy, and I think we gave them juice, not Coca-Cola that day. Yeah, that was really touching, sweet. So let's see if there's any other comments. Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be back from India. Yes. And so, in honor of Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati, we're going to just chant one more time this mantra, just once, Guru Mantra. And we'll take a moment of silence again in his honor, and then we'll close. Guru Mantra. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, excuse me, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, and the final line, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati Maharaj ki Jai. Hari Om. Together, you know, the great light that came through this beautiful form. And we're so grateful to the presence of Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati and the effect that he's had. Because even if you didn't have a direct contact with him, the people that you've known in the yoga world certainly had some effect. But maybe you've read his books, maybe you've thought about him, and by remembering his light, you too can bring his energy, his prana, his grace into your whole being. Om Shanti. So I highly encourage you during this beautiful day of celebration to light a candle. This candle is on, but it doesn't look like it, but it is. It's very faint. Something about the wax in that batch. But to light a candle, to honor the light that is this great being, to close your eyes and to really invoke Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati. You know, you bring that light into you because he's not one person's. He's a universal man, a man of universalism. So he was here for the sake of the world, not for the sake of himself, not for the sake of one person, but for all. And so his light is accessible to all of you. And any sincere effort towards that will draw 10, he used to always say, one step towards God, God takes 10 steps towards us. So if you take one step towards that light will take 10 steps towards you. So thank you so much for joining me in this small, short, simple honoring. I so appreciate it. And And I say Jai, Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati. Thank you all very much, and be blessed. I touch the shoes of my teacher. Thank you, everybody. Lots of love.